This episode of Good Living Now is sponsored by Kuvings. Now, Kuvings has just released this amazing hands-free Auto 10 juicer. Now, one of the things that I like about the Auto 10 is that it has a super large hopper that allows you to put more produce in at one time. So you just feed the juicer, turn it on, and walk away. Now, like all Kuvings juicers, not only can you juice fruits and vegetables, but it also has extra strainers. There's one for smoothies, and then there's another one that allows you to make plant-based milks and sorbets. Now, guess what? You also have a 15-year warranty. So use my code JUICEGUY and save 10% so you can get what? Get your juice on. Welcome to the Good Living Now podcast, where we talk to real people about real change, leading to real health. I'm your host, Harold LaFall, and we're going to be having an important conversation that is really top of mind for so many people right now. And that's the subject of weight loss. Everybody's talking about losing weight because it's the new year, right? Well, our guest today, he's been here before. He's a nutritionist and fitness coach. His name is Remson, and he's going to help us dispel some of the common misinformation about how to lose weight and how we should be doing it effectively. So welcome to the show, Remson.
All right, thanks for having me back.
Well, welcome back.
All right, good to be back.
Now, you gave me some information before the show about the new year. I was getting ready to say Happy New Year to you, but you have given me some information. Share with our audience what you were telling me about the new year.
Yeah, so essentially this is a new calendar year, right? But the new year actually starts in the spring, right? So the winter represents the ending of a year, and the spring represents the beginning, right? The rising, the coming to life of the planet, so to speak, right? So we got spring, summer, fall, then winter, and then we start back up again. So we got a calendar year, and then we have an environmental year.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So 2024 is the new calendar year.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's the new calendar year, and everybody is saying new me, new year, new me, and they want to lose weight. And I wanted just to have a conversation around, what people may not know about weight loss. Like, what are some common mistakes that people make when they're first journeying, or not even first journeying? Because a lot of times people are trying the same things over and over again. So, what are some common mistakes that you've seen? Some of the people that you may have worked with around weight loss.
I think the biggest common mistake that people make is under eating, actually, right? So we've heard the term calories in, calories out.
Right.
And that's not exactly true, right? Human beings aren't really thermogenic in that way. It's not kind of like, the way you burn gas in a car is the same way you burn food in the human body. That's not really particularly how it works. Weight loss is primarily driven by hormones, right? Hormones, basically neurotransmitters, that send various packages of instructions for the body to do particular things. And so, people say, well, I want to lose weight. And since it's calories in, calories out, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to eat less.
Mm-hmm.
And, people maybe they'll cut maybe 500 calories from their diet on a daily basis, and then they'll lose some weight, and then it'll stall out, and then they'll cut like another 500, and they'll lose some weight, and then it'll stall out. Problem is that you can't just perpetually cut calories, and the thing is that you'll have to cut sooner and sooner each time, right? Because the more weight you lose, the earlier you plateau, right? So essentially, this is how a person ends up being a fully grown adult, just eating like maybe 1,000 or 1,200 calories a day, feeling tired, exhausted, losing motivation, experiencing reduced sleep quality, even straight up insomnia, right? Complete hormonal imbalances, which is actually very common among women, where for women run into the experience of having a massive imbalance between estrogen and progesterone, right, where the progesterone is lacking and the estrogen is disproportionately high in comparison, right? More oxidative stress, more inflammation, these types of things, experiencing more depression and anxiety as a result of a reduced or reduction of important micronutrients that you normally would find in a robust diet. So, when you cut your calories, you're not just cutting calories, you're cutting your vitamins and minerals as well. You're reducing the amount of folate, thiamine, magnesium, potassium, iron, copper, selenium, vitamin A, vitamin E, all these different types of things. You're reducing all these things in your diet, right? And there's a price to pay for that as far as your hormonal balance.
So you're saying something that's so counter to what many people have been taught to believe about calories. We think that the way to weight loss is just reducing your calories. And that's not the case. That's not the truth.
Right? No, it's not. For me personally, when I coach people to gain weight, to lose weight, I should say, um, we often have them on a plan where they're eating more than they normally do, even to the point where they may be like, "Man, this is a lot of food. I don't know how I'm gonna finish all this." And it's like, well, it seems
Wow.
like a lot of food because you're chronically underfed all the time, and so your metabolism is taking such a hit that your appetite is shot, right? And that's also a lot of people experience that, right? It's like it can be very difficult to get through, 3 or 4 meals a day, and in fact, most people struggling to lose weight only eat once or twice a day as it is, so they can't afford
Mm,
to reduce their food intake even more than that.
mm. And so, what types of things should people be eating? Because when we think about weight loss, we oftentimes think that we got to starve ourselves, we're going to be hungry. But what you're saying is that no, you need to eat more calories. But what types of calories and what types of things should people be eating?
Yeah, so the interesting thing too, and I like to try to reframe food intake away from calories, right? Because you burn calories, you don't really eat calories. Calories is a measure of thermogenic energy expenditure, right? Um, you eat carbs, you eat fats, you eat proteins, and those are, the energy sources and building blocks of the human diet, right?
Hmm.
Now, as far as what you should eat, as far as food choice, now this is where things get interesting and a bit more nuanced. So, for example, if we want to, let's say, maximize caloric burn, thermogenic energy, the reason why we want to do that in the first place is because when we maximize thermogenic energy expenditure, essentially, this is going to reduce blood sugar and it's going to reduce glycogen storage primarily in the liver and secondarily in the skeletal muscle tissue. And as a
Hmm.
result, your body then responds by metabolizing fat and using that for energy, right? So this is why the whole the caloric burn thing and thermogenesis then becomes front and center as far as the focus to human diet and weight loss. But the goal isn't really necessarily caloric expenditure, it's fat metabolism, that's really what the goal is, right?
Hmm.
So, if I were to just mention some foods that we should be eating more of, it would be things, for example, more fruits, more leafy greens. Let's say grapefruit. Grapefruit is an amazing food to have in your diet for losing weight. Sweet
Hmm.
potato, right? That's another
Hmm.
one. Um, let's say avocado, cashews, almonds, Brazil nuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, right? These
Hmm.
types of things are very important sources of omega-6, omega-3, essential fatty acids, that kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
Which is very important for hormonal balance, vitamin E, vitamin A synthesis, vitamin D synthesis, healthy cholesterol production, particularly HDL production, which is really important for adrenal function, liver function, testosterone, all of this type of stuff, sexual health, etc. Watercress, kale of any different kind, mustard greens, spinach. These are foods that are abundant in copper, iron, magnesium, manganese, right? Potassium,
Hmm.
all of the alkalizing minerals that are needed to have a healthy liver and kidney function and optimal blood flow and blood oxygenation. So, I mean, I can go here all day long naming foods and explaining how
Right,
all of
right.
them contribute to weight loss, but um when it comes to weight loss, we're particularly talking about fat loss, right? So,
Hmm.
You have different types of fat. For example, you have certain types of fat that are more susceptible to thermogenesis than others. So, for example, you have white fat, which is the least susceptible to thermogenesis, and then you have brown fat, which is the most susceptible to thermogenesis. That's the easiest to burn, right?
Hmm.
So you'll have like a queue where you'll have the brown fat being used, and then you'll have the white fat that's like in cold storage. And ultimately, what you want to do is leverage diet and exercise, and even the time you go to bed at night. And you want to leverage those things to then convert white fat gradually into brown fat so that that can be used for energy. So when people talk about finding it very difficult to burn stubborn fat, that stubborn fat is the white fat, right? You can't calorie cut your way out,
Hmm.
right? Because your body would rather hold on to that for as long as possible and burn other things for energy, like muscle tissue, for example,
Right.
right? This is why we don't just want to lose weight however we lose it. We want to maintain as much lean mass as possible and, and metabolize and burn as much fat mass as possible, right? So that's where we have to be a
Hmm.
bit more nuanced about our food choices and exercise and bedtime and all that kind of stuff.
And all of that affects our stress levels, right? And stress has a direct impact on our ability to gain or lose weight, right?
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. And in fact, I mean, stress, literally, stress is the primary thing that inhibits people's ability to drop body fat, right? So when we talk about stress, what we're really talking about is oxidative stress, actual damage to the cells of your body, and then your body registers that oxidative stress as a threat, and then it activates your immune system. This is known as inflammation. Right? So people often talk about being chronically inflamed. So you may have gas, bloating, lethargia, depression, anxiety, maybe even stomach pains. You can have other forms, erectile dysfunction, vaginal dryness, loss of libido, kidney disease, where you may have kidney pain, right? You may have cramps in the middle of your upper back or so, whatever the case is, there's a lot of different things. You can have autoimmune disorders where you break out in rashes or, hyperpigmentation or hypopigmentation, right? It's all
Hmm.
inflammation happens in all different kinds of ways, right? And so if you are chronically inflamed, your body is going to prioritize recovering from the inflammation and reducing the oxidative stress, right? And your body is always fighting against that oxidative stress. And so your body is then going to deprioritize fat metabolism. And it's actually going to slow down energy expenditure from unnecessary activities in order to focus on the recovery. So a lot of people, they lose their motivation to exercise, they lose their motivation to continue on this strict diet and all of that kind of stuff. And this is your brain pretty much regulating you to get you to slow down and stop and just focus on the recovery and managing your stress.
Hmm.
Now, when you reduce that oxidative stress as much as possible, at least the chronic oxidative stress, the chronic inflammation, that's when your body goes, "Oh, okay, I'm feeling good, I'm healthy." Your motivation will begin to rise, and then fat metabolism will then increase. You're gonna feel like you wanna go out for a walk, you wanna go to the gym, you wanna do much more challenging exercises. I mean, your motivation may increase to the point you wanna go out dating again, you wanna start a business,
Hmm.
all of this type of stuff, right?
Hmm.
You just want to do more, and that's how you know that your inflammation and your oxidative stress is on the decline and you're recovering, right? How you feel in general.
And so you reduce your oxidative stress by exercising, by eating.
Yeah, mainly it's going to be through optimal food choices and sleep,
Mm.
right? So, for example, what are some foods that I put in a diet plan that really help to reduce oxidative stress? A lot of it is going to be different types of fruit. So, for example, cantaloupe.
Hmm.
Antelope is an extremely abundant source of beta carotene. Beta carotene really helps with reducing stress.
Hmm.
Grapes, that's another one. Grapes are very high in vitamin K2, tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin, which is what people often refer to as the feel good hormone.
Right.
It's loaded with all types of antioxidants, right? And the antioxidants literally is the thing that reduces the oxidative stress, right? So we got the cantaloupe, we got grapes, we got watermelon if you can get it, if it's in season where you are. That has an amino acid called citrulline, and that acts as a precursor to arginine, which is a vasodilator, meaning it expands your vascular system to allow more blood flow. More blood
Mhm.
flow means more oxygen absorption, more oxygen uptake, right? That in and of
Mm.
itself can expedite the fat metabolism process, right?
Mm.
And then if you have better blood flow, that results in better everything straight across the
Right.
board. Better
Mm.
muscle growth, fat metabolism, better sleep quality, everything straight across the board. Hormonal balance, you name it. Um, some other things would be going into other food choices. Let's say, I mentioned sweet potato, Japanese yam is another one. Kamut berries, very rich
Oh, I
source of
love those.
folate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, very amazing
Mhm.
source of folate, right?
Mhm.
Buckwheat, another one. Not just a rich source of folate, but also magnesium. And magnesium is basically an alkalizing mineral that is involved in every hormonal process in your entire body. I mean, in synthesizing hormones, muscle, burning body fat, optimal thyroid function, liver, kidney function, all of that, right? Magnesium is involved in all of that. If you have a magnesium deficiency, which most people struggling to lose weight have, they don't get enough magnesium in their diet, right?
Mm.
And then you can also be eating foods that are inhibiting magnesium absorption. So, for example, saturated fat, if you have enough of it in your diet, it can actually inhibit magnesium absorption in the intestine,
Really?
right? So
So
you can actually
saturated
be
saturated fat would be things like what?
mainly animal products, to be quite honest. That's where you're gonna get the majority of your saturated fat, right?
So that couldn't impact your body's ability to absorb magnesium.
Right. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So now plant-based fat sources are very different because plant-based fat sources are very high in potassium, magnesium, iron, copper, all that kinda stuff, right? So, you know, peanuts, cashews, almonds, Brazil nuts, pumpkin seed kernels, all these types of things, very rich in magnesium, very rich in copper, very rich in zinc, and all this kinda stuff. So and they're also predominantly going to be polyunsaturated fat sources, right? And then you have
Mm.
monounsaturated fat sources and a minimal amount of saturated fat, right? So these are the
Mm.
ideal fat sources, and they actually,
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, do the opposite of what saturated fat does. So if
Mm.
saturated fat contributes to insulin resistance, the polyunsaturated fats actually contributes to insulin sensitivity, improving your body's ability to use glucose for energy, right? Um, So yeah, as far as, those whole grains that I mentioned, the kamut, the buckwheat, very rich sources of magnesium, and they're mostly carb dominant,
Mhm.
right? So these are going to be where the bulk of your calories actually come from, right? As your carbohydrates, right? So as far as your macros are concerned, I mean, you'd be eating fats to carbohydrates at like a 3 to 1 or a 4 to 1 ratio, more so along the lines of a 4 or even a 5 to 1 ratio, right?
Mm.
Um, Food choices, right? So I mentioned the kamut, I mentioned the buckwheat, quinoa is another one. And then moving into I mentioned nuts and seeds. The
Right.
nuts and seeds, the reason why I split the difference between those is because your seeds are more so going to be your sources for omega-3 essential fatty acids. So the flax
Mhm.
seeds, the hemp seeds, the chia seeds. And then for your omega-6s, that's where you have your nuts, right? Your cashews, almonds, walnuts, pistachios, macadamia nuts, these type of things, right?
Mhm.
And then your leafy greens, and leafy greens are like very calorically low sources of vitamins and minerals. Essentially, it's like nature's multivitamin, right? Your leafy
Mhm.
greens. It's
Mhm.
going to be like a prebiotic supplement and a multivitamin supplement. That's pretty much what leafy greens are like, right?
Mhm.
Full amino acid profile. I mean, just phenomenal stuff, right? Your herbs, your leafy greens, these types of things. Right, so with what you do with the juicing, the reason why, it's so impactful on human health and just can reverse all of these different chronic illnesses and improve your quality of life is because essentially it's like you're drinking a liquid multivitamin, which really maximizes that nutrient absorption in the intestines.
Mm. Look, speaking of leafy greens, some folks are believing that things like spinach are harmful for your health. Can you talk a little bit about where that's coming from, and is that true?
Yeah. So um, now there are certain moneyed interests that have a financial incentive to um, develop propaganda, right, to dissuade people from their competitors. So, for example, animal agriculture, right? Um, Plant-based diet and animal agriculture, they're in a competition. It's a zero-sum game between the two, right? So, as you get a rise in popularity of plant-based diets, the propaganda is then ramped up from animal agriculture in order to combat that, right? Because they've been taking hits monetarily, financially, right? So as people eat more fruits and vegetables, they're doing more juicing, this type of things. People are going more plant based. It's hurting the profits of animal
Mm.
agriculture. And animal agriculture is like the dominant agricultural sector in our economy,
Right.
right? Where animal agriculture is like right up there with like the military industrial complex, right? Selling guns and bombs and all this type of stuff, right? So big money. So they can finance all kinds of studies. They can pay people on TikTok and YouTube to say things and all types of stuff, right? And they have every incentive to start things like, before it was the keto diet. And then the keto
Mhm.
diet, people were having too many complications with that. And they were getting excessively high cholesterol, heart problems, low libido, weight gain, all this type of stuff, right? So people started abandoning keto, and then things rolled into plant-based dieting and whole food plant-based, and that picked up steam. So now the new thing is even more extreme, which is carnivore diet, which is like, oh, vegetables are trying to kill you,
Right, right. Yeah.
right? So now the propaganda is even more extreme. So now out of nowhere, you have these brand new carnivore influencers where they blow up overnight and have millions of followers and they're super popular. This is how you know it's astroturf, right?
Mm.
Because when
Mm.
you're doing something from the grassroots, it doesn't just blow up overnight like that, right?
Right.
There are big moneyed interests propping you up,
Mhm.
right? So you see all of this, before it was, fruits is too much sugar and causes diabetes.
Right.
Um, but then what happened is people started doing the keto thing and cutting all their carbs, and then they became more insulin resistant. Their diabetes got worse. Then they started doing the plant based thing. Now it's the
Mm.
carnivore thing, right? Where now it's like, oh, fruits are bad and the vegetables are trying to kill you. So they're
Mhm.
getting more desperate and getting more extreme as a result of losing profits. So that's where that's coming from. But as far as the scientific evidence is concerned, there's no scientific evidence for it whatsoever. I mean, all of the available data and scientific studies that we have demonstrate that the more green leafy vegetables you eat, the better the health outcomes are. Right. So you can compare people who don't eat any vegetables to the ones who do, and the ones who do have much better um, health outcomes.
Now, most of my friends who are over 40, they are struggling, with their weight, and are kind of just thinking that just because they're getting older, that they're going to, gain all this excess weight, and not really knowing what they should be doing to, get the weight under control. Because a lot of them, have never had weight issues. Then they get 40, and now, they're carrying around this extra weight. What are some of the things that people, just not just in terms of diet, but even in terms of exercise, what should people like over 40 be doing in terms of losing and maintaining weight?
Yeah. So now what's interesting too, right, is that you have a physiological age and then you have a chronological age. Now, there is a bit of a misconception between your physiological age and your chronological age. So now this leads into a conversation about metabolic health, right? Most of the population, right, about 80 to 90% of the population is not metabolically healthy or has some type of metabolic dysfunction. All right.
And what does that
Now,
mean, what does that mean, metabolic dysfunction?
so the chemical conversions that happen in your body, acid to alkaline, respiratory functions, all of this is are all of these are metabolic functions, right? The expenditure of glucose, converting glucose and using it to develop ATP inside your cells to power cells, breathing in oxygen, releasing carbon dioxide, that kind of thing. That's all. Those are all metabolic functions. So this just falls under the umbrella term of your metabolism, right?
Gotcha.
When there's a hitch in any of these metabolic processes, that's
Hmm.
regarded as a metabolic dysfunction or a poor metabolism, right? If it's sustained chronologically, right? Um, so this takes at least a year to develop a metabolic disorder or metabolic dysfunction, but typically it happens in 5 to 10 year intervals, right? So basically, when they start experiencing it, typically people are like, oh, once I hit 30, that's when things started changing, right?
Right, right. Hmm.
And it's like, well, essentially what happened is you were eating a certain way as a kid, and it probably got worse as you got older. You started making worse food choices as you got older because, as you get older, you become more independent and then you get more, you make your own money. And so then you can then go and start drinking alcohol. You could start experimenting with smoking. You
Hmm.
could start eating out more, right? You start going out with your friends, staying out later. You start picking up other harmful habits that you couldn't do because you were constrained as a child. Once those constraints are lifted, this can accelerate the metabolic damage. Then as you get older, you get more responsibility, you gotta pay bills, you do overtime hours, this kind of thing, so you end up missing sleep, you're waking up really early, so you're going to bed late and waking up way too early. You're always on your phone, blasting your eyeballs with all types of social media posts, blah, 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 arguing with people in the comments, dating, dealing with everybody's messiness, right? A bit of a complicated, maybe even toxic social life, so all of these things they impose these debilitating circumstances on your metabolism. And if you do that year after year after year for throughout your teens and then 20s, and then when you hit your 30s, boom, you really start to notice, oh man, things are different now, right?
Hmm.
Now, if you don't do anything about that, a lot of people don't know what to do about it once they hit that point. So
Hmm.
then 10 years later, boom, now you're 40. So you're even deeper in, right? Then you also gotta think about, well, what happened when you were in your 20s? What were some of the main things? What stock market crashes happened, right? What bear markets did you go through? How much money did you lose in that process, right? How many times when you were you under the threat of eviction or not being able to pay certain bills and dealing with that kind of stress? Or you were fired, laid off, or whatever the case is? What if you went to college and you were sitting in college and you had to sacrifice food choices and meal prep because you were writing papers and all of this type of stuff? And then if you were going for your master's or whatever, you're writing dissertations, etc. So all of that self-care stuff starts to go to the wayside, right? Because you have these other goals, right? Educational
Hmm.
goals, academic goals, financial goals, etc. Now, if you played your cards right, you're 40 years old, you have more control over your life, you're a little bit more financially stable, or at least you should be, ideally, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now you can now shift your focus to your health. Ooh, I need to do something about this. Now, this typically happens for people who are 40, but usually 45. Right? 45 is that number where people are like, I have the resources and I have the freedom to really deal with this, but I don't really know what to do or how to go about it. Right?
Hmm.
So, everything that I just said, most people who are 40, 45 years old never heard any of this. Now, it's not the reason why they didn't hear about it is because human beings didn't know. We do. We had the data to demonstrate this stuff. Right? Um, but you have cultural limitations, you have economic limitations where people will sell certain things that are typically easy to sell to make money, etc. Right?
Hmm.
So what was that pill that Oprah was pushing? The Ally pill? And it was like a
Mhm,
pill with
mhm,
fat in it, was it?
mhm,
What's that thing?
yeah.
Right? And people were having anal leakage and all this type of stuff from
Right,
it, so that kinda fell by the
yeah,
wayside, people stopped messing with it.
right.
Right? You had things like, "Oh, you can eat anything you want just as long as it's not carbs," right? And that whole thing, and
Right.
people started had
Mhm.
so imagine you try each and every fad to get your health in check when you're 30, 35, 40, but you're doing all of these things, and a lot of them are harmful things to do because 'cause they're all marketed as we love shortcuts, right?
Right,
So do this fast where like you just drink this juice for 21 days, right? So you're drinking like, 500 calories of juice a day or something like that, right? Instead of I lost a ton of weight, but then when I stopped doing it, I ballooned back up in weight. And it's like, yeah, because you keep trying to take shortcuts to get this weight off, right?
right,
And so when I talk about these things, I'm not trying to sell you on a product. I'm like, hey, this
right.
is just how the human body works. And this is what
Mhm.
the science says, right? So no one's going to run an ad saying, "Hey, you got to reduce the oxidative stress in your body,"
Right.
right? That doesn't
There's no
sell
money in
very
that.
well. Now it's
Right,
true,
right,
right?
right,
But it
right,
doesn't
right,
sell very. People are like, "Where can I swipe my card to get like some pills or something or a packet or whatever, and just put it in some water and drink it, and the weight comes off?" And I'm like, "Well, it's not. Doesn't
right,
really work that way, right?"
right,
Um. So this is often why you've never heard these things, but now we're in the age now where we're going to have to start being honest about how the human body works. So now we're going into, self-development, self-care, mental health, right? Not being hard on yourself because you're overweight, whatever the case is. Because with you being obese or struggling to lose weight, it's not really your fault. This is the thing; it's not really your fault, right?
right.
There's a quote, um, and I got to find this quote. It's a really good quote that, and people got to hear this, right? Because basically, it,
Mhm.
it has to do with your environment and the fact that you can't really what is this? Okay. An always pervasive environment is beyond perception, right? An
Say that
always
again?
pervasive environment is beyond perception,
Mm,
right? So
mm.
essentially, there are forces that are acting on you all the time, nonstop. And being that you don't know any other difference, you're not aware of those forces, right? It's kind of like you can't explain to a fish what it's like to be wet because they don't know what it's like to be dry, right? There's not a difference, right? So it's that kind of thing. So if you grew up as a child and your whole family was obese with terrible eating habits and they just fed you like that, that's all you know. And a lot of people who are obese today, they were set up to be obese as a child, right? If you weren't breastfed as a child, you're behind the eight ball, right? If you worked in an area that was blue collar, working class, or even low income, right? There was no Jamba Juice to go to, right? There was no vegan whole food restaurants or raw food choices to go to. There was a Chick-fil-A or a Kentucky Fried Chicken or a Popeyes or a McDonald's or whatever, right? And you got a short break. You got like 30 minutes or whatever to go and get your food, wait on a line, sit down and eat and rush through your meals, right? Or you don't even have time to eat. Maybe you miss your lunch break altogether, like a lot of working class people do,
Right.
right? So there's all of these things happening. If you go through that, working this job really consistently, grinding it out for 2 to 5 years, you destroy your metabolism as a result.
Mm.
Truck driver. Truck driver, you make good money, but you're sitting all day. And it's the worst thing to do to just sit for like 8 hours straight. It's very bad for your vascular system, very bad for your hormonal health, everything, right? Your fellas, basically, you're sitting in the truck and you're basically sitting on your prostate all day,
Mm.
right? And your hips are real tight and all jacked up. And then you have your lymph nodes that are in your hips and around your groin area, and that's all congested from that seated position. So your
Mm.
lymphatic system is basically at a standstill for that whole entire time. You don't know that. No one told you that. right? So that is one of those acting forces that is always acting on you that you're not aware of. Nobody told you. How would you even think to know that, right? And so the thing is that the only way you would know that is if, somebody like Harold brings me on and then I go and I say it and you just so happen to see it. So this is what
Now
we're
I know
dealing.
now I know somebody just heard you say you're sitting on your lymphatic system. Tell us what the lymphatic system does.
So your lymphatic system is essentially another circulatory system in your body that is largely important to the detoxification of your blood. Right, so
Mm,
your lymphatic system, it doesn't really have a pump like your vascular system does. So in order to circulate your lymphatic system and decongest your lymph nodes, which is these checkpoints throughout your lymphatic system, you have to move. Right? You have to exercise,
mm,
you have to move, rotate at the torso. A lot of it is rotating at the torso actually, right? That's the primary mover, of the lymphatic system. But it basically
mm,
is the system that circulates through your whole entire body and removes toxins from your bloodstream, right?
mm,
And they get filtered out through your kidneys, fecal matter, etcetera. So if that's congested and it's not really moving, you can end up developing and accumulating excess toxins in your body that then stress out your kidneys and can later lead to, um, you know, liver cirrhosis, kidney disease, diabetes, cancer, and all types of other things.
mm.
Right.
And that's why movement is so important, right? Movement and exercise
Right.
is so important for the lymphatic
Right.
system.
That's why yoga became such a big deal too, like stretching and all that kind of stuff. Because essentially what they're doing is they're pumping their lymphatic system. So it's
Ah,
the so
I never thought about that. The whole
yeah,
Pilates thing, people are losing weight doing Pilates because I never,
lymphatic system. Yeah.
the lymphatic, wow.
Yep. It's literally it's deep breathing combined with pumping your lymphatic system. That's essentially what they're doing, right?
Right, right, right.
Right, right. And in fact, movement in particular, when it comes to since we're talking about weight loss and exercise, I'm gonna give you an illustration here. I can put somebody on a plan where they're doing alternate day fasting, and they can do alternate day fasting where they eat 4 days a week and they fast for 36 hours 3 times a week, right? And I can have 10 people do that, and another 10 people do that on this side. One group, they don't do any kind of exercise, they're sedentary on their fasting days. The other group, they walk 5 miles on every fasting day. The one who walks the 5 miles on their fasting day ends up losing twice the amount of body fat than the group who didn't. Walking is literally the best fat burning exercise you can do, period. Walking.
Mm, mhm.
Right? 3 to 5 miles a day. Minimum of 3, but at least 5. And you could do 2.5 miles twice a day.
Now, would you recommend like somebody who's just getting started, they're trying to change their eating and they just don't know how much to eat, what to eat. Should they be writing this down? Should they be trying to create some kind of meal plan? Or definitely reach out to somebody like you to help them create something, for them?
Yeah, so you can do it on your own. So here's the thing. It's a lot of trial and error when you try to do it on your own, right? And the reason why is because we don't, on average, as human beings, know how to eat intuitively. We don't, right? In fact, human beings don't really do much of anything intuitively well. We're not really that intuitive. We're really not as human beings. And the reason why is because we live in a very externally structured world that is very unnatural, right? So there is a concept that I've been going over in my head, and it's called implicit custody, right? So in our society, there's a zero sum game called implicit custody. Everything in your life that involves you, there is ownership of your life, right? If you engage in your life, or let's say your whatever habits you engage in your life are passive, that means that those habits are owned by somebody else. There's an implicit custody and it's an externalized custody, right? You can have explicit custody. and that's the custody you're aware of. But most of the custody of our lives is implicit, meaning our lives in some way, shape, or form is owned by someone else or some other institution, right? So even if you're making the choice, I'm going to go to Panera Bread to eat because I heard that's better than Popeyes. Well, you heard that, but is that actually true? Because I heard, meaning you passively received information and you bought into it. That's implicit, right? Explicit is when you go and you seek out the information and do the reading and the research to actually demonstrate if that's true. That's explicit. When you decide you're going to go take the extra step to be more deliberate about what you do, now you have explicit custody over your life.
Mm.
That's where your life changes very significantly. And explicit custody is very, very rare. Like only like 1% of the population does this. These are, your entrepreneurs, your highly, successful people, your people, on podcasts who have this very different story, right? That is very inspiring to the majority of the population because they decided to go in a very different route than other people. And the reason why they do that is because at some point in time, they engaged in explicit custody over their lives rather than just signing it over casually, unaware of what you're even signing, and that's the implicit custody, right? So, if you want to write a diet plan for yourself, most people don't write a diet plan for themselves. You may make a list of foods and say, "Well, I like this, and I heard that that's healthy, so I'm just going to eat those things." It doesn't
Mm.
really work that way because there's a certain amount of math. So,
Mm.
for example, if I say your carbohydrate to fat ratio should be anywhere from a 3-to-1 ratio to a 5-to-1 ratio in carbohydrates favor. If you wrote a plan for yourself, have you ever done that math in your head, right?
Right.
Have you ever said, "Hey, what's my overall body weight, and then I want to drop body fat, so I'm going to subtract my body fat percentage to get my lean mass, and then I'm going to calculate my food intake according to my lean mass." Have you done that before? Do you know the mathematical way to do that, right? If you said, if I'm going to structure a diet plan, do you factor in your training? Are your eating days different than your training days? If your eating days are not different than your training days, well, then you're structuring your diet plan on an even average layout, right? You're getting an average of nutrients that you would need, whether you're training or not. Are you doing that, right? Or are you doing my food intake is going to be 10 to 20% higher on my training days versus my non-training days? Or if you're doing an alternate day fasting plan, if you're doing a 36-hour fast, then that means that on your eating days, are you eating 120 to 125% of your maintenance calories? Do you even know what your maintenance calories is? These are not conclusions that are easy to come to intuitively. They're very math
Right.
based, right?
Mhm.
Human beings are so complex that it's difficult to engage in just intuitive reasoning because of how sentient we are, and quite frankly, how mathematical and complicated we are. Right? I mean, we do all types of weird stuff that uh, you know living beings don't normally do. Taxes and buying stocks, right? Comparing the 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 value growth or, in an annual period. Is that this dividend is really high? Is that really worth it? Is that sustainable? What was the average dividend year over year over the last 5 years? All of this type of stuff. When you look at charts and all of this type of stuff, that's complicated. And there's nothing intuitive about that, right? So it's these kinds of things. If you think about, okay, well, if I need to retire at a certain age, how much money do I need to put away? If I'm buying, bonds on the bond market and, writing that off on my taxes, how much do I get for that? And all of this type of stuff. Nothing is intuitive about any of this. And so with diet, it's the same thing. I mean, even driving, right? We need to get a driver's license. You can't just give somebody a car and just be like, yeah, just get out on the road and have fun. It's like riding a bike. No, it's not
Mhm.
actually, right? Because
Mhm.
you ride on a bike, you'll fall, scrape a knee.
Right.
You crash in your car, you can kill yourself and other people,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Eating wrong can kill you, and it's killing most people, right? Quite frankly
Right.
speaking.
Right.
It's a
Right.
very slow and agonizing death that people are not aware of because it is this pervasive, unperceptible thing. You don't even realize you're doing it.
Right.
right? You're eating eggs and bacon every morning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I always did that. My granddad lived to 105 years old doing that. He's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, but does your granddad represent the majority of the population of people who are 105 years old? Or is that person a statistical anomaly? Right? So it's that kind of thing. But now if I start bringing math into it, we don't do that intuitively. So,
Mm-hmm.
basically the long and short of ideally you should go to, if you don't know how to eat, you should go to someone who is educated in how to structure a diet, right? That's ideally what you should do. Right? I happen to be that specific because I come from a sports performance background. And in a sports performance background, you count everything. Right? And it can be very granular, like, oh, before you work out, you do 3 grams of citrulline malate, 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, 3 grams of beta alanine, 1 gram of sea salt. And that's like your pre-workout. If you wanted to maximize performance before like a competition or powerlifting meet or whatever the case is. And you
Mm-hmm.
count it to the gram, and there's like scientific data that demonstrates that, and that's what you're basing the numbers on. Raw dosage, right? For the general public, you're like, oh yeah, just try to eat like try to eat like, more greens, try to have 4 meals a day. Oh, your protein should be like the size of your fist. That's not math, right? This is kind of like
Right.
a general recommendation, right?
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. But if you have a background where you got certified in sports nutrition, well, now we get into dosage,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I have a philosophy background.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to have a philosophy background, there's a major focus on critical thinking. And that leads into media literacy, propaganda, that kind of thing. So then I pick up on that because of that. Right? Why
Gotcha.
are you saying it? What is the thing that you're saying? You're saying it because you expect to achieve a particular goal. What is the goal you're trying to achieve by saying that thing? And you can tell what somebody's intentions are if you ask those questions. You can tell whether somebody's being honest or not by those questions, right? So it's that kind of thing. If you see somebody boldly making nutritional claims, but then under their videos they said this is not nutritional advice, this is just for entertainment purposes, you're kind of giving yourself plausible deniability, as if you don't believe what you're actually saying because you don't want to be held liable,
Eh, right. Right. Mm-hmm.
right? I don't need to do that because I'm not just making up stuff,
Right. Right. Right.
right? Um, I think one thing that we miss too is how much weight loss is reasonable within a week.
Oh yeah, I meant to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What
So
is the answer to that?
So basically, a reasonable amount of sustainable weight loss within a week is anywhere from 1 to 2 pounds a week. 2 pounds is more on the aggressive side. If you implement some form of fasting strategy where you're implementing 36 to 24-hour stretch fast, you can reach 2.5 to 3 pounds a week
Okay.
of fat loss, not overall weight loss, fat loss,
Fat loss.
right?
Hmm.
For every pound
What's the
of
difference?
body fat you
What's the
lose, you can
difference?
drop 3 pounds of water.
What's the difference between weight loss and fat loss?
Because most weight loss is the dropping of water weight,
Mm.
right? So you have water is the first most common thing to lose, then body fat, and then muscle mass. Muscle mass should be very minuscule, and then you have, let's say, fat and then water. So you lose water and fat at like a 2 to 1 or a 3 to 1 ratio. So for every 1 pound of fat you lose, you drop 3 pounds of water.
Hmm.
Right. So a lot of times what happens is when people stop with the dieting to lose weight, they'll gain
Hmm.
back 3, 4 pounds or so. And a lot of that is just water weight, right? Because as you replenish the glycogen inside your cells, that also funnels water back into your skeletal muscle tissue and refills and hydrates your organs, which then contributes to an additional weight gain of 3 to 4 pounds of that water. But it's not actual fat.
And so, do you recommend that people? How often should they weigh themselves? Like, if they, because I know some people they're obsessed. They weigh themselves every day. I mean, how frequently? If you're on a weight loss journey, how frequently
It depends on your personality. Some people, they may wanna just do it once a week. Some people may wanna do it twice a week, or you could be like me and you do it every day just because you want the data.
Okay, so there are no rules, whatever it's
Yeah, there's
okay,
no way. Yeah,
gotcha.
it's
Okay,
personality based, right? It's very
okay,
personality
gotcha,
based.
gotcha. All
So for
right.
example, I do it where I just started doing this recently, weighing daily. But the
Mhm.
reason why I do that is because I want to know my weight fluctuations on a daily basis according to whatever I did the day before and establish a trend. I
Gotcha.
want to see the trend in real time. That's what I want to know. I want to know what kind of trend I'm establishing. Some
Okay.
people, they get real anxiety about the scale, so I'm like, you may want to take a break from the scale and only do it
Right.
like once a week or so, right?
Right.
Or you have like every 2 days you check in and step on the scale.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing.
Okay.
But however, people who are like really desperate to lose weight, those people need to understand you are obese not because you eat too many calories. You have a metabolic disorder, and you have to reverse that metabolic disorder before you can start losing weight at any significant degree. You got a lot of damage and a lot of mileage on you. You got to fix that first, right? It's kind of like, look, I mean, you can't go from being sedentary to just be like, I'm gonna run 5 miles a day, right?
Right.
So you
Right.
have people, they skip steps. Oh, I want to fit. I
Mhm.
got my testosterone's low. I'm gonna start injecting
Mhm.
testosterone. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Easy.
Right. Right.
Skipping a lot of steps there,
Right,
right?
right.
Because you can't just start injecting the testosterone and then you're eating a diet that's crushing your testosterone, right?
Right, right.
Because then you're gonna crush
Yeah.
yourself on 2 fronts, right? You're gonna
Uh,
drive yourself even deeper into a metabolic disorder with your diet, and then basically
uh,
you make your gonads completely useless by supplementing with the hormones, right? So you clip your wings on 2 fronts, right? So it's like,
uh,
easy, right? Be careful about skipping steps. As far as weight loss is concerned, I like to do it, um, on a monthly basis and then within 12-week periods. This is how I personally do it. So, like, for example, um, you should be able to drop at least 4 pounds a month on average,
on average,
right?
okay.
But that can also be 6 pounds in a month. But that depends on how much body fat you have to lose,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
And the big difference between how much weight you lose is actually how many miles you walk on a daily basis.
mhm.
This is like the thing. Just like I mentioned, the group with the alternate day fasting, where they
Right.
didn't walk on the fasting days and the ones who did.
Did
The,
yeah.
the ones who are active on the fasting days, that's when the fast really counts. That's when you get the most results from it. The thing is the activity,
Right.
right? So like in
Mhm,
my training plans, I'll have daily walking, then the resistance training, which is typically only 20 to 30 minutes, and then I'll have daily mobility exercises. And essentially what that is that's to open up the body, increase flexibility, mobility, and stability, as well as encourage deep breathing and a flushing of the lymphatic system. That's what that's for. So there's
mm,
3 different types of exercise that I put into a
mhm.
training plan. And then you have the nutrition that undergirds that.
And so, Remsen, if somebody wants to get in contact with you to learn more how they can get their weight in order, how would they do that?
Yeah, basically I have people where they can book a call with me.
Okay.
So you can go to I have 2 websites. One is trybinaural.com and one is
Mm,
trybinaural.tv. Right. So you can go to the website right there and there'll be a button that says book a call with me. Right. You just book a call right
mhm,
there. So yeah, I do, personalized diet plan. I do personalized training plans. I do weekly calls and I'm also running a 12-week mentorship where
mm,
every week I do live seminars and Q&As
mhm.
with the people in the mentorship program. Right. So I'm big on education, right? I don't really sell many products, but I'm like, yeah, we gotta get right on the education,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because weight loss is a side effect. It's not really a goal, right? It's more of a side effect, meaning that when you focus on optimizing your metabolism, getting to a healthy weight is just a result of doing that. That's just what happens naturally, right? And that's really what it has to be. We have to know the difference between something being a goal versus it being a side effect. Is because I help people fix these issues all the time. It's mainly what I do,
Right, right.
right? I've never come across somebody with a metabolic or a gut issue and we haven't been able to improve it or completely reverse it through a plant-based diet. I've never had the issue
Mm,
where we just didn't have any success and they got worse. Never been the
right,
case.
right,
And I've had
right.
people with H. pylori. I've had people with autoimmune disorders, IBS, colitis, Crohn's. I've had people with hepatitis, kidney disease,
Mhm,
fatty liver disease,
mhm.
right? Psoriasis, PCOS, hypothyroidism, diabetes, all types of stuff. And we've been able to improve on all of these issues with a plant based diet and be able to get full reversals on issues within a 12 to 16-week period.
Wow. Well, man, thank you so much. I know you have just dropped a lot of nuggets and knowledge for folks to really get them to thinking differently and realizing that, education is so important and getting the education from yourself, not just what you heard, not just what you saw on TikTok or, other places, but getting real concrete information that could help you, make some real changes that's going to lead to the kind of outcomes that you want. So, man, thank you so much for dropping all this science on us. I appreciate you, brother. We definitely will have you on again because I know folks are going to have a whole bunch of other questions after they see this broadcast. So, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.